Hey guys, welcome back. You're still watching Power Breakfast on CNBC TV 18. Now, the big data that we're watching out for today, the second quarter GDP numbers will be released today. And ahead of that, a poll conducted by CNBC TV 18 shows that the economy is likely to have contracted by 8.9% during this period. Lata Venkatesh is standing by with the key highlights from that poll.
Well, the GDP for July, August, September, or the second quarter is going to be announced, and a CNBC TV 18 poll expects that the economy would have contracted by 8.9%. Okay, this is the year ago number, and this is quarter ago of quarter one, April, May, June, which of course was a terrible quarter, minus 24. Now, another way of looking at the GDP number is as GVA, gross value added. Not very different from GDP. You subtract taxes and add subsidies and you get the GVA. So by GVA standards, the economy would have contracted by 8.6% compared to 23% in the first quarter. Now, originally we had got estimates of minus 10 and minus 12 for the second quarter. But after this data, GDP is a combination of EBITDA of all companies plus wages plus taxes. Now, when the second quarter numbers came, we found that the EBITDA of all the listed companies had risen by a way higher than expected 40%. Now, after seeing this higher EBITDA, a lot of people have, decreased the contraction expectation. JP Morgan is the data we are quoting. They also upgraded their GDP forecast from some minus 9 or minus 10 to minus 7. But all economists, after looking at the EBITDA of the listed companies, which was announced, they have been upgrading the GDP number. Now, this is the internals of the GDP. Whatever is yellow is our poll, okay? Now, as you can see, only agri and power are actually still in positive terrain. The rest, mining, manufacturing, are all in negative terrain. Though, of course, they are not as bad as Q1, which is shown by the green bar. Public administration is what government is spending. There again, government has not spent much in Q1 and Q2. But the positive I want to point out is that many people have now reduced their estimate of contraction. They don't expect the economy to fall much. For the full year, we got a number of minus 8%. Now, this is much better than the minus 10 and minus 14 that we were getting about 4-5 months back. Even the RBI number, you will notice, the last number we got from RBI is minus 9.5 for the full year. Most economists believe the RBI will also bring down the forecast and say the economy is not so badly off. It will contract, but it will contract probably by 7 or 8%. In any case, all those estimates will depend on what we get from the second quarter GDP. This perspective is only to show that, yes, COVID hit us badly, but we appear to have been slowing from a very long time. 7.1 even in the first quarter of 2019. We never saw 7% after that. And then we have given up even the 5 handle even before COVID hit us. It's good to remember that hopefully the COVID number, if it doesn't come as bad as 8.9, then we will get further upgrades to the full year economy.
All right, Lata, thanks a lot for running us through all of those estimates. We will, of course, have to wait till the evening before those numbers are out. We also spoke to SBI Chairman Dinesh Kumar Khara last evening, and he said that the contraction in the economy could be around those similar levels that the poll threw up of 8 to 9%.
I think the second quarter has seen a significant improvement in the activity level. And I would correlate it with the unlock situations happening in various towns and cities in the country. And I would say that as and when and wherever we have seen the unlock happening, we have seen the demand revival. And demand revival itself has kick-started the economy. And that is something, one of the reasons why all of us are expecting a significantly lower contraction as at the end of the second quarter.
So what's the number that you're going with in terms of contraction for Q2 and for the full year? The RBI's forecast or estimate was 9.5% contraction. Do you believe that it will be better than that?
My expectation is it should be between 8 and 9.
All right, that was the SBI chairman saying that the contraction should be around those similar levels of 8 to 9%. But shifting focus to some stock-specific news now, the merger of Lakshmi Vilas Bank and DBS Bank will be effective from today. Now, the Bombay High Court, however, has refused a plea by a group of promoters of Lakshmi Vilas Bank to stay the amalgamation and has given time to the Reserve Bank as well as the banks to till the 14th of December to file the affidavits on the matter. CNBC's Yash Jain now joins us with some more details on this. Yash, take us through the details.
Well, good morning, Pavitra. So, of course, as you rightly pointed out, the Bombay High Court heard a writ petition which was filed by certain promoter entities of Lakshmi Vilas Bank challenging the scheme of amalgamation between Lakshmi Vilas Bank with DBS Bank India. As far as the order from Bombay High Court goes, the court has refused to grant any interim relief to those promoter entities. The court hasn't granted any interim stay when it comes to that scheme of amalgamation between Lakshmi Vilas Bank and DBS Bank India. The court has primarily observed that the relief which has been sought by these promoter entities is monetary in nature and it can be granted at the time of the disposal of the case as well. So at this point of time, there is no requirement for an immediate action from the court in terms of granting a stay on the scheme of amalgamation itself. Of course, this order followed by arguments from both entities. The promoter entities argued that the steps taken by the Reserve Bank of India are in utter haste and with non-application of mind. They also said that all stakeholders need to be considered, and here the shareholders have been completely wiped off, so which is not correct.
All right, Yash, thanks a lot for taking us through all of those details. Let's also hear it out from SBI chairman once again on what he makes of all of the corporate governance in the banking sector.
The issue involved is that when the regulations are there and also when the law is in place, very important aspect is how it is being implemented by the management also. As I mentioned about the corporate governance might not have been up to the mark, and that is why it led to this kind of a situation. So I think it is more of an oversight and implementation of the law, and also some bit of a conscience on the part of the board and the corporate governance structure which were there in these banks also.
All right, another important story this morning. The government has formally notified the operational guidelines that will govern the 100% emergency credit guarantee scheme. This is a scheme that had originally been thrown open to 10 sectors and it has since been expanded to cover 26 sectors as identified by the KV Kamath panel. Ritu Singh joins in to explain all of the details of this expanded scheme. Ritu.
The government has announced operational guidelines for Emergency Credit Line Guarantee Scheme 2.0, which, remember, was expanded to include 26 stress sectors as identified by the Kamath Committee, plus healthcare, which was additionally included. The big takeaway is that the overall amount of 3 lakh crores envisaged under the scheme originally has not been increased, and given that banks have already utilized about 2 lakh crores, only the 1 lakh odd crores that is remaining is what will be made available to these 27 new sectors that have been brought under the fold. Under the first scheme, given that it was for small borrowers, to be eligible, borrowers had to have an overall turnover limit of up to 250 crores and total loans outstanding of up to 50 crores only, whereas in the second scheme, they can have loans between 50 to 500 crores and there is no ceiling on the turnover, that is annual turnover. In the first scheme, up to 60 days past due as on Feb 29th were eligible, whereas in the second scheme, it is more stringent. Borrowers with only up to 30 days past due will be eligible to apply under ECLGS 2.0. There is a 4-year repayment window under the first scheme, but it is longer under the second scheme of 5 years, given that these are larger borrowers with larger loans that they will be taking. The scheme is valid until the 31st of March next year, but loans under the scheme can be disbursed until June 31st next year, that is 2021. Interest rates for both are capped at 9.25% for banks and 14% for NBFCs. Under the first scheme, lenders have been asked to give an opt-out option, which means it will be given to all unless they choose to opt out, whereas in the second scheme, it is an opt-in only. So overall, quite a few changes that have been brought about in the scheme. The first scheme was not as successful. Now we'll have to see if the second scheme really is able to exhaust that entire 3 lakh crores, and if that becomes a limiting factor to be able to help these stress sectors.
All right, Ritu, thanks a lot for running us through all of those details. But with that, on to some somber news coming in this morning. FC Kohli, the first CEO of Tata Consultancy Services and regarded as the father of the Indian software industry, has passed away at the age of 96. Kohli, who joined Tata Electric Companies in 1951, parachuted into Tata Consultancy Services as a general manager. A pioneer in the technology revolution in India, Kohli played a formidable role in building the $100 billion IT industry. Kohli was also actively involved in the decision to bring IBM to India as part of Tata IBM, a JV for hardware manufacturing and support. IT industry veterans have been paying rich, glowing tributes to FC Kohli. Infosys co-founder Narayana Murthy said that Kohli had laid the foundation for a strong TCS. Wipro founder Azim Premji hailed him as a true pioneer of Indian IT, and N. Chandrasekaran, the chairman of Tata Sons, said that FC Kohli was a true legend who had laid the foundations of India's IT revolution.